So Fire Force has been doing some pretty interesting things with its narrative and world building, and especially in this episode, which is primarily focused on Benimaru, Joker, and Victor in terms of those two perspectives, and an unlikely duo that I thought would never really join forces, but once I saw Joker and Benimaru fighting together, it kind of made sense because when you have someone who's, even though he's on the Fire Force, he definitely has very different views and mindsets than the traditional Fire Force soldier who bends to the will of the organization. But then you have Victor just seemingly kind of losing his marbles here because he's seeking the truth no matter the cost. And it's interesting to see an episode like this that may not garnish the same amount of respect as past episodes because it's not as flashy, the production isn't as crisp and polished, and instead of having a lot of insane action, you get a little bit of it, but mostly it's focused on dialogue and characters like Victor really pondering the idea of the tablets that are being shown to the world versus the ones that they saw and how that's actually pie, like Arthur said, and what does that actually mean for the future. It's so interesting to have an episode like this, especially after the amount of insanity that we have experienced, because this is a show that understands that its world is the most interesting aspect out of everything here. As much as we may like characters or dislike characters, the thing that drives Fire Force forward is the idea of the Infernals, this cult, this church, and the uncertainty of what everything actually means. So to have an episode where you have all this new information, you throw it to your boss, and your boss comes back and says, yeah, so we can't just expose this to the world because everyone will be shocked and in awe and will probably kind of start a riot that will never be able to be tamed. So we need to give the church 3 years so they can slowly reveal the truth. And, that 3 years is going to turn into 10, which will turn into 30, which eventually people will forget that they were ever supposed to expose the truth. And if it seems like you're probably putting your foot a little too forward for their liking, they'll probably kill you and be like, ooh, I wonder what happened to poor little Shinra. So it's nice that characters are recognizing the bullshit, and that's why, even though Victor as well as Joker have always been intriguing but malicious characters, Joker was introduced very menacingly and then kind of became an anti-hero that you still didn't want to trust, and Victor, you just didn't know. As long as there was information that he could observe, he probably would be on your good side. But after seeing the corruption in terms of the Fire Force and the church, it makes it very easy for you to trust in characters that could easily stab you in the back, but feel like at this point, if everything's going to be corrupt, we might as well go with the people who seemingly are evil according to the church, because at the very least, they're trying to bring them down the same way characters like Shinra are. And that's why just having characters like Victor just really not know what to think, because it feels like to him that there's no way that the Fire Force can get the job done anymore, and it's time to get the stray dog to go wild. And I was actually thinking he was talking about himself for a minute. I thought we were going to have a mad lunatic scientist just go rampaging with guns of infernal dilemmas or something like that. I don't know, but it was nice to see that they were talking about Joker all along, because these two are so opposite, but at the same time, because one's seeking information and the other just wants the truth, even though they're both seeking technically different things, they seemingly line up, and that's why you have these unlikely pairings. And honestly, despite me never thinking I was going to look at Joker and Victor as some of my favorite characters in this show, they definitely are up there in a top 10, maybe even top 5, depending if I sit down and really think about it. Because of course Benimaru is a total boss and I love him. He's top 3, top 2, maybe even my favorite. It's really hard to say. There's a lot of good characters in this show. It's nice to have this unlikely pairing as you basically have a church fearing like, hey, we can't piss off Benimaru. And then Benimaru comes crashing in and they're looking at their boss and being like, we haven't even done anything yet. And the top elite soldiers just get annihilated with a little flick of the wrist. And it's nice to have that. And I think what they did really good job with this episode, as quick as the action was, and despite not being the flashiest we've seen, it makes you feel like Victor and Joker and Benimaru, like they kind of have it made here. It feels like they're going to be able to get some answers, and then out of nowhere, something hits our man and he passes out. Now, I don't think he's dead. I don't think Benimaru is going down forever, but it's kind of funny to see Joker being like just so disappointed that the person that he's finally like confident that he can fight alongside, he doesn't feel awkward around. He's like, this is lame. And I'm going to be interested to see what Joker's going to be able to do in terms of combat, because even though they've had a really easy time with this whole invasion, it seems like there's actually going to be one person who's going to put up a real fight. It'll be interesting to see if Benimaru actually joins in, or if he's going to wake up and the battle's going to be over, either as a victory or a loss for them. But that's what I like about this show, is that it took its time in this episode, and while that may not be everyone's cup of tea, and some people would have preferred having none of this, some people may have preferred having half of this episode with some more adrenaline pumping stuff and then carrying on the next week's episode, For me, I think it's good. It's not good to have an episode like this every single week because it will get dry and repetitive and you'll feel like the world building is a little too much, as if you're getting into those books like, great authors like George R.R. Martin have a hell of a time overly explaining details that you're like, you spent a whole chapter explaining the way something looks, we don't need to do this. But Fire Force knows that it needs to keep it exciting, keep it adrenaline pumping, but then slow it down for an episode or two, give you some great information to think about, so then as you're seeing all these crazy events, you're still thinking about that previous world building or characterization and you don't know where it's going. And that's why I really like this episode. The worst I could honestly say is it was one of the most visually plain looking episodes, and despite it always being just kind of them standing around talking, there was a couple of moments throughout the episode and just pretty much every scene that I thought they could spice it up more. But with that said, there was also some gorgeous imagery with Victor just walking around. I thought they did great jobs with that, so it was kind of a coin toss. Sometimes I really liked the presentation, at other times I thought they were kind of underwhelming, like they needed to add some salt to their seasoning. But overall, it still looked pretty good, and there was some nice details that I really like Victor's cup being broken as he drinks from it. It almost symbolizes to me like his mindset's a little shattered, as he's still held together, but at any moment he could snap and just really break on these people. And I like those smaller details, the subtle clues to a character's motivations, and I love that. It is really interesting though, because as I mentioned, it seems like such an unlikely pairing to have Benimaru and Joker work together, especially when you look back at how Joker was introduced and he seemed like the most evil character we were gonna meet, and boy, our faces red looking at what's the actual evil in this show. But I think even though Benimaru has appeared to be like this very good and righteous person, he has his own beliefs and he doesn't just bend to the will because a higher up tells him. He makes his own decisions. I can remember one of the first scenes I've seen of him, he was walking out of a meeting because he just didn't agree with it and stuff. So I like how he does have his own beliefs and he's not afraid to work with people who seem intriguing and as if they may know things that honestly he doesn't. And it's not like he's putting his blind trust in this guy, he's just saying like, this seems intriguing and I don't trust this system. Let's work together, and if you decide to stab me in the back, I'll just absolutely wreck your shit, because not many people would be able to stand against him. Honestly, have we even met someone who could? Besides maybe the actual big bad villain of this series? Absolutely not. So it's nice to have those moments to really set the stage in a new direction where you think you understand characters' motivations, and then episodes like these come around, completely twist on its head, and you have no idea what to feel or think, and that's an amazing feeling for a show like this that continues to evolve with every season and every episode, and that's a great feeling. But overall, this was a great episode. Was it the best? No, but in terms of world building and characterization, they did a hell of a lot, and we got one of the most unlikely duos I think we've ever seen. Of course, as always, let me know your thoughts and feelings down below. Did you love it? Do you hate it? And where do you think it might go next week? If you enjoyed the video, of course, leave a like to show your support, and hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.